Good evening. This is a Greenbelt City Council work session. My name is Emmett Jordan. I'm the mayor. Council.
Kristen Weaver, Mayor Pro Tem.
Silky Pope Council.
Danielle McKinney, council. Jenny Pompey, council member.
Municipal Council Member.
Rodney Roberts, City Council.
Hey, does anybody have any information items, discussion items for the end of the meeting? City Manager Summerall.
Yes, I have one, Mr. Mayor.
Well, fantastic. You know, we hold these council work sessions on Mondays and Wednesdays several times a month to exchange information with community stakeholder groups or to gather information from staff, advisory boards, or residents. No votes or formal actions are taken at work sessions. Our work sessions, as well as our meetings, are open to the public, except for executive sessions as authorized by state law, so that residents and others can observe council's deliberations. We do strive to provide reasonable opportunities for the public to voice opinions on matters being considered, so we'll pause periodically for public comment. Since this is a budget work session, we'll probably pause at the end of each section and to see if there are any comments. So during these times for public comments, if you wish to address council or if you wish to ask a question, you can raise your hand if you're in the room, and after being recognized, just go to the microphone at the podium. You'll need to state your name and address. We need that for the minutes. If you are on Zoom, you can use the Q&A tab on the bottom of your screen to submit a written question, or you can raise your virtual hand, and after being promoted, you can speak. Once again, we need your name and your address, more or less. We don't also with Zoom, you need to submit a name. We don't accept anonymous comments. And of course, if you're watching on cable TV, Facebook, or YouTube, you can send an email to us. Send the email to questions@greenbeltmd.gov. With the comments, limit your remarks to 3 minutes and speak on one topic related to the question under consideration, the topic under consideration. We ask, as always, that you avoid questioning the motives of others. And in general, we ask you to be civil in your remarks. So tonight is it's the second work session on this budget. The city manager actually presented his budget to council at the council meeting last Monday. And, it was a budget which we'll be talking about and considering. We'll have a total of 8 work sessions. This is the second one, 2 public hearings, and possibly a town hall meeting. The budget, it's a $52.53 million budget. 40 million is in the general fund, 7.5 million in capital projects, and about 5 million in other funds. So we appreciate the city manager and all the hard work that our department heads and staff from top to bottom have put into preparing this budget. The budget is a map to get us where we need to go in the next year. So, Mr. Summerall, welcome. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council. Good evening, residents.
Okay, and we're joined by our city treasurer,
Yes.
Bertha Gaiman,
Good evening, all. Bertha Gaiman, City Treasurer.
and of course, our clerk, Benita Anderson, is here with us. So let's go ahead and dive right in, and we'll be covering the miscellaneous grants.
That's correct, Mr.
And
Mayor.
answers.
We're covering grants and contributions, followed by cinema, and we'll close out with CARES.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's dive right in. It's page 242.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to also acknowledge Liz Park, Dr. Liz Park, our Director for CARES, and Crystal Beatty, Assistant Director for CARES Gales program. Also in the audience is Chandra Andrews, our PIO officer. Mr. Mayor and Council, this is one of the more exciting budgets. And I'll say exciting portions of the budget because it is a direct funding for programs in our community. So short of having a participatory budget or program budget, this is as good as it gets when we're talking about providing funding and direct funding support for organizations and groups in our community. What you see different in this year versus last year is that we have not preloaded the amounts for particular grants, contribution, recognition groups, and and various other groups that are funded through this project because we are still in the vetting process of those grant applications. Further, some of the requests are directed directly to council. Some we are aware of, some we may not be aware of, and they may not come to you until at some point between now and when the final approve the budget. So what's the good news here? The good news here is that in the 2025 budget, we had allocated $209,700 for grants and contributions. This year, after we went through that laborious task of reducing cuts and finding savings in our budgets, we were able to accommodate this portion of the budget at $271,800. So there's a significant amount of funding available here for grants and contribution and other initiatives that council may want to embark on. For example, council had requested that we itemize the reductions that we did in other budgets, particularly recreations department. This could be a funding source should council want to restore any of those cuts made there. So as you're looking at the grants and contribution, there are 4 sections to this budget. One is the organizational leaders. There are 2 items that have been previously funded in that category. Those are swim coaches and concert band conductors. These have been requests that have come directly to council. Then we have the recognition groups. The recognition groups have a robust process in which they apply through. So they submit a formal applications. There's a review panel that reviews the application, scores the applications, and provides recommendations to council on which projects to fund and by what amount. That recommendation would come to council later in this process, but prior to council hearing directly from the recognition groups, which are scheduled over a 2-day period. The third portion is the grants. That includes Gives, Meals on Wheels, Washington Year, the Refugee Assistance Program, and there's a miscellaneous category. This was at the request of council last year that it wanted a pot of money for it to serve as discretionary grants and financial resources throughout the year. Yes, Ms. Rio?
There's a couple of people commenting that they can't hear on either Zoom or on YouTube.
Ms. Andrews, can you check on that, please?
If I could, I'd just like to make a quick comment in regard to your last statement. So that discretionary funding, it's not so much a pot of money, but it's a reality test. We reality check each year. You know, situations come up with various groups, and council is asked to step in, and we need a little bit of flexibility in order to meet those challenges. Some of them are quite significant. So, working with the immigration group last year, it was last year, 2 years ago, working with the space. These are all questions, issues that came up sort of midterm, and we had to, council had to address them. So this is just having that funding gives council the flexibility to be able to address those situations when they come up.
Correct. And, from a budget perspective, the words discretionary are the ones that we use because it allows for that flexibility. But, right, this amount of money or this pot of money allows council to be responsive for whatever urgent matters come up throughout the year. Things that you cannot anticipate, you can't plan for. Things happen.
Things we can't avoid.
I'm sorry?
Things we cannot avoid sometimes.
Sometimes there's that. And then finally, the 4th category is the advisory boards and committees. These are an extension of our government services, and we see them as an extension of ourselves. So because these requests go through the staff liaison or a council liaison, we're treating it as such, and we have loaded those amounts into the budget. So 18,000 for ACE, 1,000 for Green Aces. We had some internal confusion about whether there were 2 requests for Green Aces and 1 for the Green Team, and we just took them as there were 2 separate requests. But in fact, I understand that there may be just 1 request for $1,000 for both of them. We were being proactive and we added both of those line items, but now you have an extra $1,000 that you can move somewhere else. The PSAC at $1,900, the Forest Preserve at $2,000, And then the reparations, the initial request that's in this budget is for 23,000. Since we've finalized this budget and printed it, the Reparations Commission has updated the request, and Dr. Rosado is here and can speak on the request in its totality, and the request is now for 29,000. And that concludes the 4 items under the 4 different groups of funding under grants and contribution. Council.
Well, thank you very much. So are there questions from council? We've submitted questions in advance. They are discussion topics. So while we received answers in some cases, there may be questions that you have, or you may just want to discuss some of the questions that you may have submitted. So I'd like to provide an opportunity for you to do so.
But just about. But you're talking just about this sort of general page.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not hearing anything. So I did ask a question about line item 99, which has to do with the funding for the groups, contributions and recognition groups. Of course, we do have 2 work sessions coming up, and they're coming up in 2 or 3 weeks. What's the date?
Longer than
May
that.
14th and the
May
19th.
14th and 19th,
Yeah.
and we've invited a representative from each of the groups to come, and they can speak and just, you know, talk a little bit about what's behind the request. So line item number 99, which is in the second group under grants. I'd asked for a little bit more detail. So Ms. Gaiman was telling me in writing that was to cover the cost of the contribution groups, but there's
Yes, again, we did not preload the numbers as we did in previous years. And so that $224,900 gives you the flexibility of the ability to, once they come before you, to decide which of these lines you want, or which of these organizations you want to fund in
Okay.
2026.
and it's more or less, it's about the same amount to cover all of those.
Yes, plus the amount that we usually give council. Once you've done that, you've allocated to organizations, there's usually about 36,500 left for you to allocate during the fiscal year.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Go ahead, you
I
had
just
that.
wanted to add one more point to that, Mr. Mayor. That when we were done making the reductions throughout the budgets, we decided to move some of the funding into this grants and contribution because it's easier to track what's available to move around within the overall budget from this sheet than it is to have variances or availability in the different departmental budgets. So for example, when we balanced the budget for recreations, we had some funding left over that we could make the decision to go back and restore those fundings. But then obviously Greg's not in the room, but he has priorities of what things to fund. So should council not utilize all of its funding, we would like to request anything that's not allocated from this budget to restore some of those fundings, restore some of those cuts. So an example would be the senior service programming. That's there's a lot of appeal for the senior field trips and other services. That's something that that was not fully funded into 2026. We funded at the same rate of last year, which is the current budget year. But there was an additional request that we could not fund. So we try to maintain the budget to 2025 standards as much as possible.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And of course, along those same lines, it gives council the ability, after going through this budget, it's our decision, you know, based on what the public is telling us that something needs to be added or a position needs to be restored, we can do that. Correct. Yeah. I think Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember McKinney.
Yeah, a couple of things. So I think we have in here did we ask for Meals on Wheels in Washington Ear as well as Gibbs? Did we ask them to submit and they just didn't submit a written request yet? Okay. So I think that seems like something that we should address here shortly, and we might have to follow up with the others. And I guess that's the same for CERT and CART and maybe the Arts Advisory
That's
Board.
correct.
And I did try to reach out because I was the one who pointed out that I think that Green Aces and Green Team, I think when John Lippert emails about them, he often, because they sort of work in concert. So I think he said for
Okay.
Green Team and Green Aces, $1,000.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure he hasn't responded to my email confirming that, but I'm pretty sure he just meant the $1,000
For both.
for both and combined. So I don't know.
Mhm.
And that might be something, I know he had sent the memo request, what Green Aces would like to request.
Yes. he
So
did.
with some details, I don't know if that got forwarded to the rest of
I have it,
council
yes.
yet, but that it was, I mean, I can pull that up if we want to talk about that briefly now. I don't know that there's anybody here from that. And then the other one, I would just suggest that we also, it sounds like we could talk to Meals on Wheels right now. But also we have the Reparations Commission and I don't know, and here, and I think this seems like this section is the right time to talk about that as well.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. I think in the past, Meals on Wheels and the other contribution groups are usually are here to state their case. And I've not seen any correspondence from them directly, so that would be very, very helpful. Let's see, Councilmember McKinney, would you have a couple of questions or inquiries now before we go to that?
Oh, are we gonna answer Kristen's questions first, or do you want me to? Is that,
Well, the question about, well, you brought up about 3 points. So one had to do with the funding for the advisory boards. And you said that there was some information that hadn't been forwarded to council.
Yeah, just that, and I thought it would be included in this packet. It may just have gotten lost in the shuffle, but I can, it's the email from John Lippert, that just the list of things that Green Aces, their budget request. It was sent a while ago, so, but this is what they're looking for that, these registration fees, the ads in the new review for some of their events, supplies and materials, and then some software for the Sustainable Maryland certification. So that's the added detail for what Green Aces was looking for. And like I said, I don't think there's anybody here to talk about it necessarily, but if there are any questions, I can probably answer them as the liaison to Green Aces.
Okay. Also with that funding, some of the other advisory boards would have the discretion to submit requests as well. I haven't seen anything else. Has anything come in, budget requests from any of the other advisory committees?
We have ACE. We have the funding request from ACE. That's the one I'm aware of. Are you aware of the other ones?
We have ACE, who is this? Reparations.
Oh,
and-
obviously.
Well,
reparations.
yes, it's here, and Forest Preserve Advisory Board. And let me take responsibility for not actually sending these because they did come to me and I just simply put them in the budget. I didn't realize I should have shared them, so my apologies.
Okay. And the other question was promoting Meals on Wheels. If they'd like to speak.
Yeah, I think they're already promoted. That's Lisa Ely, right?
Right. Councilmember McKinney, are you comfortable holding on?
Yeah.
Okay. Miss Ely, welcome. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. It's raining a little bit right now, so
It
we're hearing
is.
the pitter patter of raindrops on the roof. But thank you for all you do, and you've submitted a budget request. You're here tonight with us. Can you give us a real brief update on some of the things that you're doing for Greenbelters?
Well, currently, I checked the numbers today, and we are currently serving, I think 48 Greenbelt residents through CARES and SAS, which is great. And I know that the residents that are receiving that assistance is most appreciative. Additionally, we have probably 10 other Greenbelt residents that either pay their own meals or we are supplying them with meals for free as their income does not allow them, or does not enable them to pay for the meals. And I don't think for one reason or another, they wanted to apply for assistance through CARES. And I believe, and Crystal can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that we are at a standstill right now as far as funding, and we're not taking any new clients on for any of the programs at this time, pending, of course, more funding that may come in. We have probably 30 Greenbelt residents that volunteer with us. We have episodic volunteers, so we can't say that they're in every week. In fact, the crews on a daily basis are typically completely different from one day to another. We are most thankful for the assistance that we're getting. I'm sure you've seen the articles in Greenbelt News Review. With recent cuts from the government, we will be scurrying around trying to find funding. And we probably have enough money in our budget right now to get us through another year. We can't say what's going to happen after this upcoming year that we're in. So we're looking for grants, and I was also told about 2 weeks ago that the county council representatives were also had their budgets that they get to provide funds to different organizations has also been decreased. So we won't be able to rely on what we've typically gotten from the county council either at this point. So we've got some decisions down the road. And of course, we appreciate anything that anybody will provide to us. I didn't submit a letter. I was looking through my emails real quick while you were speaking. I did not see a request for a letter, but that doesn't mean that it's not embedded somewhere in the mess of my inbox. And I apologize for that if I overlooked it.
No, we appreciate that, your overview and everything that you're doing. Just two quick questions. One, just looking down the road, do you receive any direct funding from the government, from the USDA, or does it sort of filter through other entities?
It filters through, it is from the government, but that has been slashed, and that was made up about 1/3 of our budget.
Wow.
And that, we have no idea what's going to happen down the road, but as of now, we cannot rely on that money at this point.
Yeah, and the other question, with so many of our residents here in the city of Greenbelt working directly or indirectly for the federal government and having changes or losing their positions, I'm wondering, are you seeing or are you planning to try and stretch a little bit, or what do you think? How can we serve those individuals together?
Well, we haven't heard from any of them yet, I have to say. I think we're going to take it as a case-by-case basis when we do, if we do. You know, I think that people are just in shock still, and I've got my daughter lives in Greenbelt now, and she is dreading turning on her computer every morning when she goes to work for fear that it's going to be the notice that she's might be ripped. So, you know, it affects us all one way or another, whether it's the neighbor, whether it's a child, whether it's a spouse, or just a resident that you know. We're all, you know, just sitting here on pins and needles, just waiting, and we'll do our best that we can. You know, if we go out this year because we're out of funds, then at least we'll go out knowing that we've done the best we could over the past 51 years. So that's where we're at.
Hey, thank you, Lisa. Any other questions or comments from our council? Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem.
So just maybe a clarification from Mr. Summerall or Ms. Gaiman. So this budget, the amount, and I think this may have been asked in one of the questions, we allocated some money for Meals on Wheels through ARPA,
Yeah,
but that wouldn't appear in this budget item anyway. That would appear somewhere else.
That's correct. That's correct. Different pots of money. Am I on?
So we still need to, if we wish to do the, what was it, 5,000 in previous years, that would go here, but there's still the additional money
That
from
they have.
ARPA elsewhere.
That's correct.
Right. So as it stands, our plan is to sustain our funding and use, we've actually put aside some additional funding that was allocated from the American Rescue Plan Act. So we're doing everything we can. Thank you for all you do. And please keep it up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate it.
Okay. Have a good evening. Thank you
You
so
too.
much.
Thank you.
Okay. And let's send out a letter or something just to get some information in from the other contribution groups that we've been supporting. We do that.
Yes.
And at this time, I guess we can pivot to either the Reparations Commission or the Greenbelt Cinema to give us an update. Oh, yes, please go ahead.
All right, I'm sorry. I had just a couple of questions. Going back to the green team, I actually think that should be team.
Team, it
So that
should.
was, I had
Should.
submitted that
I've
question. I was like,
already
is that something
corrected
different?
it.
Okay. Perfect. Then I was curious about these groups and whether or not I had asked the question previously that I'd sent in earlier of whether or not we get performance indicators from these groups, because I think it would be nice to be able to look at the budget request
Mhm.
as we're also looking at what are the goals and the objectives, as well as the people that they're meeting in the community. So, you know, I know that some of these organizations really touch a lot of people.
Sure.
And so being able to say, you know, we've dedicated this amount and it touches whatever hundreds of people would be helpful. And I know we've been talking about an annual report, but is
Yes.
there something in the letter that we might send out where we could actually ask them for some key indicators or goals that they met this year?
So what I plan to do is contact the staff liaison just to see what kind of information that they actually receive. I just know that in the past, when they would present to council, they would bring their annual report and,
Right.
you know, they would bring numbers and, you know, sort of, this is what I did with the money in the past year and sort of justification for the requests in the coming year.
Yeah.
So I can get back with you to let you know if we receive anything other than that. And if not, then that's something that we can do in the future.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be lengthy.
Sure.
It really doesn't.
Sure.
I just think it would be helpful to know, like, how many people are served?
Sure.
You know, what are the 2 or 3 goals that they're trying to meet each year?
Mhm.
To know where that money is going,
Okay.
I think would be helpful. So.
Okay.
does
So
not have to
noted.
be
So
lengthy.
noted.
And then I just had one other question that I had also asked about, which was related to the space. So they got a grant. Was that part of ARPA, or did that 20,000 from the previous year come from a different pot of money?
That is the 20,000 that's in the budget here, the for prior year, that's coming out of this budget. So Space has received funding from various sources.
Okay,
They had the workforce development funding,
okay,
the entrepreneurship funding. So those are 2 other funding sources that are separate from the 20,000 that's
right.
here. These are operating grants that they have requested
okay.
through the recognition group process. So that has its own grant review process. It goes before a committee, the committee scores it and provides a recommendation to council.
Okay, so there are different funding sources that are making up that 20,000 that we're seeing from FY
No.
2025
No, this is local general fund money, the 20,000
for the space.
for the space.
And so then what we're saying in 2026, there are no funds allocated for them in this upcoming year. But they do have other funding and contributions from other grants.
They have 2 grants from ARPA funding, one for workforce development and one for entrepreneurship. That's using ARPA dollars.
Is it the same amount of which they're getting? So they had $20,000. I'm trying to make sure that they're still getting the 20,000, because that's a big decrease going into FY 2026.
Right, so at this point, it will be, they have submitted an application, they'll get a review and a recommendation from
Yeah.
the committee. So council would have the opportunity to grant them 20,000. I don't know what they requested for this year, do you know?
No,
Yeah.
Greg is going to bring that information
Okay.
at the May 14th or May
Okay.
19th.
Yeah, so I don't know what that request is and
Okay.
what that recommendation is, but council will make the decision of what to award them.
Okay, so there's potentially, I'm sorry, just one more follow-up.
Yeah.
There's potentially additional money that would be seen, that would add to this section of the budget that we're not seeing right now.
The ARPA expenditures are a completely separate budget.
But
And
if-
that's already been allocated and encumbered. We had to execute contracts for that money.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but if they come back and they're requesting funds,
Mhm.
will that show up on an amended line in this section of the budget?
We will actually reduce the line of the 99 line miscellaneous, the 124,900. As you allocate to these various groups, we will reduce that number and actually plug it in or wherever you approve the money.
Okay, thank you so
Got it.
much.
Yes.
Yeah, so all of the organizations that are listed there with a zero, we have two work sessions coming up in May, early May. And there's the grant review committee that's managed by the Recreation Department and by the Arts Department will make recommendations,
That's
and a
correct.
representative from each of those groups will come. And council will be able to fill in the blanks with the funding that is in that line item 99.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Council member, and also for the groups that aren't here, Gives and Washington Ear, we could probably invite them to come in on that date and also present some information.
I
briefly.
believe that those written requests will come in. As a matter of fact, I received something from PSAC. So I think they're just coming in later, or coming in after we prepared this document. So I believe they will come in. If not, we will reach out to them one more time.
Very good,
Yes,
very good.
yes.
Councilmember Pope.
Thank you so much. I'll get used to it. Yeah, I was gonna ask for cert and card because it's on zero as well.
Yes.
But I'm sure you're gonna receive something for that because I just, would like to see both of those back funded. And my question was maybe for Sway, remember the trailer we talked about? Whatever happened to the trailer?
We ordered that through ARPA funds.
Oh,
So
it's ordered.
Yes, we had to encumber the funds and council had agreed to use ARPA funding to replace that
Right.
cert trailer.
I remember that. I
Yeah.
just didn't remember. I just didn't remember if,
We did switch vendors because the vendor that the CERT team had priced was out of North Carolina, I believe, and it was a hefty shipping fee. So we
Yes.
found a vendor out of Pennsylvania
oh, right.
that Berwyn Heights had used. So.
Right now I remember exactly. There was this little hiccup. Okay, thank you.
Pro Tem.
Yeah, I can clarify, well, and actually Jay could probably clarify it better, the difference between the green team and green aces. The green team is was, I think, originally a requirement of Sustainable Maryland that every city who gets the Sustainable Maryland certification has to have a green team. And so that's sort of a broader but slightly different group that's focused a lot on the Sustainable Maryland certification, some other things as well. But then Green Aces is sort of the separate advisory committee for the city. So they work in tandem, but the green team was something that had a specific purpose related to Sustainable Maryland. They end up being sort of blended groups, but there are some members of the green team who serve on that who aren't officially appointed to Green Aces, but they're involved in collecting information and helping with the Sustainable Maryland certification. So they're affiliated but not identical organizations.
Yeah. And I, for one, I am open if there are other advisory boards that have reasonable requests that they'd like to put forward. I'm willing to listen because I think that the funding, the support, we've got so many different advisory boards, and if someone has a good idea, we should be able to consider it. Yes, council member.
Yeah, I wanted to build off of that. Do we actually ask them before, how do they submit? I think I might have asked this last year.
Mhm.
How do they submit budget requests? Because I'm just looking at, there's certain advisory boards that are receiving funding, others are not. I'm thinking about APB actually did a larger meeting where they had
Mhm.
community members come in. They did, a charrette, which, had additional funds because they had refreshments there. So how does every advisory board request funding, and are they given direction to request funding, or is it just if they have an idea, they request the funding?
In the past, we, the city, just automatically preloaded these numbers. If they received an award in the prior year, we assumed that you would approve it in the following year. That's what we did for FY 25. Last year, we talked about that
Yes.
we should get a written request. And so we had the city liaison, staff liaisons to reach out to these advisory boards and committees to ask them to send in a request this year. And so far, the ones that you see preloaded here, I have those. And again, I apologize for not sending them out. And actually, I've received one from PSAC. Do I have PSAC. So the ones that you see here loaded, I have the written request. The others have not yet responded. And as I said, we will reach back out to them to ask them to, if they want to ask for a request this year, that they send us a written request.
And it went to all of them, not just the ones that were preloaded last year.
They went to all of them. Okay, just to these. Okay, so I stand corrected. So just these, yeah, the ones that were preloaded last year.
So
I think
So
Coun-
I'm not
council
sure
makes
who
that-
that would be, whom else it would be. So unless we would have a list of those, or, of all the boards and commissions. And I would know the staff liaison. I wouldn't know, honestly, I wouldn't know what other ones exist, to be honest.
I think here we're relying on past practices.
Yes, yes, yes.
And just to emphasize, council makes these decisions, not trying to open up the gates, but if somebody has, on one of the advisory boards, has a good idea, that they want to do, I'm open to considering all of them or any of them. Ms. Pope, and then we'll take some questions, and then we'll go to Greenbelt Cinema.
And I think that's what we discussed last year as well. We didn't want to just, because that will be, like Emmett said, you open the floodgates. But I think we want to make sure that our committees know that if there's an event they want to do, and if they need some funding or they have some kind of idea, that we're more than willing, even during the year, to hear them out and and that's why I think we asked for a separate pot, like that gives us a little bit of flexibility,
right.
so we can say,
Mhm.
okay, well, here's a couple hundred, or
Mhm.
so we can accommodate those extra wishes, so to speak.
Well, we can certainly look into that. If there is a staff liaison with any of them, we can reach out to them and just relay that message.
Or council liaison.
Yeah.
Or council, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, well, at this time, we'll take a couple of questions. I believe Jay Davis has had her hand up first, and then we'll go to Mr. Hartman.
Jay Davis, Greenbelt East, a little historical background. First of all, CERT and CART usually do their budget request under public safety.
That's
So
right.
that's probably why they didn't do it yet.
Okay.
They come in with public safety.
Okay.
As far as the reports of the advisory boards and committees, this has been going on for years. This is not just last year, this year. This has been something that council, through my previous direction, always requested. First, it was very informal, but then I said and asked council to ask for an annual report. And that report is a report, not just a request, give me money. It is also supposed to be, what did you do with the money last year?
Mhm.
If you didn't do anything with the money, you should have said something. So it's a two-edged report. And that should be made clear to the staff liaisons and to the committees themselves. And we've always said that any committee that comes up with an idea, if a committee has a need to go to a conference or a seminar or a webinar that costs money, for instance, that's always been taken care of by the city. That just comes out of the planning department's budget or the recreation department's budget or whatever. These extra little funds are if they are doing something like a reception, or they're requesting an expert to come in and it's going to cost some money. So keep that, they're not paying for their training, for instance. The training comes with the territory. And the third thing I want to bring up, and I'm sure everyone heard about it in the news tonight, is that the Department of Education, federal, is clawing back any money that any school systems have not used. They basically said the deadline was such and such. We are not going to give you an extension to 2026. If they're doing that for the Department of Education, it could very well, even though we already have the money, supposedly, the government is clawing it back, and it is wreaking havoc on the school systems throughout the United States. So be very careful when you think, oh, the ARPA money, that's something we have. It may not be.
Yeah, that's something we've been looking into, actively planning for and looking into all along. So, yes, please.
I'll credit Ms. Gaiman on this. She was adamant that we had to have signed contracts, purchase orders for every single one of those dollars. So come December 31st, we had those contracts.
They are actually in place, and actually, I got a similar letter, as did most of us. We got a letter from the US Treasury to tell us that if you have not allocated your dollars effective December 31st, please write us a check and send it back to us now. So we have allocated every dollar of our ARPA dollars. And I am emphasizing and re-emphasizing that every report, which the next one is due April 30th to cover January 1st through March 31st, that we must show that we are spending these dollars down, because December 31st, 2026, we will either have spent them or Josue will be writing the check.
We are not writing a
Not
check.
writing any
We're
checks.
done.
I'm sorry. And, you know, we got a heads up about this
Yeah.
at the National League of Cities Conference, beginning of March, and actually back in November. Councilmember Pompey, did you have your hand up?
No.
Oh,
Mr. Mayor, there is something that came up as Meals on Wheels was presenting, as Lisa reported, a third of their budget.
we heard that.
Driving up the cost of the meal. So what we thought our money can do for the next 2 years, I'm not certain that we're gonna be able to support the same amount of food. And Dr. Park is here, might be able to speak on it more, but we might need to reconsider front loading those contracts, meaning just instead of having them carried out for the next 2 years. That's possible, because they're based on the current arrangements we have, we don't have any room to support more people. And given the news of Department of Education staff being laid off and other staff laid off, we might just need to utilize. Does that make sense?
Unfortunately, it doesn't make sense. What you just said, yes, the idea of the federal government clawing back money from educational systems and other vital grants that people depend on, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't. Just this week, we learned that the federal funding for flu clinics has been eliminated. So now the county is no longer going to be able to do flu clinics among the other immunizations and vaccines that it does. So you would think that after having to endure COVID, that could not be a reality. And unfortunately, it is a reality that we're facing now.
Okay, Mr. Hartman, please.
Michael Hartman, 2 Court Garden Way. Again, I would request people who are soft-spoken to please speak up, and sometimes your little red indicators are not on the microphones. I'm a former member of Green Aces and a current member of the Green Team. And just as a note, the Green Team is made up of businesses and residents to advise Green Aces. And those members are recruited by the board, by the council. They're appointed by the council. And it's really important that more residents and more businesses participate in the Green Team, especially because we did reach out to like businesses for the bag bill and the styrofoam ban. We reached out to residents for the compost pilot. And I think it's really important that if we can get more businesses involved in the Green Team and more residents, that would be very helpful. And I would encourage the council to renew its efforts to recruit people for that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, thank you. And when you say businesses, that includes nonprofits, it includes condominium and homeowners associations. So we do need to redouble our efforts to try and diversify, to grow, to expand the scope of Green Aces so that it is as representative as possible. Yes.
I just feel compelled to talk about ARPA. Just one more point. Allocations have already been made as of December 31st, and there is no opportunity to change any of those allocations. And so as we talk about this budget, I'm just emphasizing this so that we don't think that if it's not funded here, that the ARPA dollars is another opportunity. It is not. I just feel compelled to emphasize that. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that. And even if we've allocated funding and a contract falls through for
Mhm.
whatever the reason because of the contractor, we really can't count on or don't have the flexibility of finding another contractor.
Well, we can use it for the purpose that we have allocated, and if an employee leaves, we can replace that employee. If the contractor goes away for whatever reason, we can get another contractor, but we have to use it for the allocation or for the project that we have identified. So
Yeah.
that's a plus, actually.
Appreciate that. I just
Yes,
wanted to clarify that.
The technicality on our end is that we have that purchase order open in our system, so for whatever reason, a vendor were to not able to complete the work that's agreed, we will swap out the vendor within that purchase.
Within the purchase order.
But
That's
we
correct.
cannot- So I'll clarify my statement with regards to the Meals on Wheels. We've allocated $72,000 for Meals on Wheels to put over the next years. As we currently plan is to evenly distribute that $3,000 a month until the end of 2026
With ARPA dollars.
with ARPA dollars.
That's
So
correct.
when I meant by front loading that expense, talking about instead of spending $3,000 a month until December 26th, maybe to push up, front load that money.
Yeah.
Spend more.
Pay out that money and still.
Pay maybe 400 instead of 4,000 instead of 3,000. That's
Right.
correct. But it's the same $72,000 in the ARPA funds.
Correct.
Understand.
Yes.
Hey, so we'll take one more question before we move on. Mr. Orleans? And because we've got this new microphone system, I want to urge you, please speak into the microphone as much as possible. Thank you.
Bill Orleans Greenbelt. I thought I had understood the city manager's explanation why there was seemingly a double entry for Green Aces in the green team. And notwithstanding Councilmember Weaver's response, I think I still understand his initial comment on the subject. And also his suggestion to council that there's an additional $1,000 that council can choose to place elsewhere. I had made a suggestion a couple of years ago. It was never precisely acted upon, but from budget meeting to budget meeting, as preliminary pluses or minuses are discussed by council and it thought to be comprised in the final budget package that's voted upon, at the following meeting, if not that night, but at the following meeting, minimally, if there could be a table on the table, a chart on the table indicating a change from what's in the published draft budget book, that would be very helpful. I understand the discussion last week that council members, some may choose to submit questions in advance to either staff or potential recipients of grant monies. I would suggest, frankly, that those questions should have been on the table tonight so that interested members of the public could see the questions asked and better understand the responses to those questions. That's nothing for Ms. Gaiman to do, but something for the gentleman sitting to her right should do. I would look forward to that too. And lastly, with the subject of Federal Department of Education clawbacks and other agencies wanting to maybe attach themselves to previously federally allocated ARPA monies, there's never been a better time than now for organizations like the National League of Cities and the National Association of Counties to assertively, aggressively challenge what's coming out of Washington these days.
The National League of Cities is doing that. So at this point, in order to stay on our agenda timeframe, we can pivot. Now, looking at this document, it says Greenbelt Cinema, but
Reparations. That's on this page still.
yeah,
That's, the Reparations Commission is still part of this page, so I think we should do reparations before we move to the cinema.
Well-
Same page of the budget.
okay.
Yeah, it's on page
It-
42, this section.
You say so.
It is.
Dr. Rosado,
It's-
please welcome. It's nice to have you here. If you'd like to step up to the,
Apparently, it's right there in black and white.
And just if
Good
you could
evening.
just Speak into the microphone. I mean, you're so, have such a soft voice.
Who has a soft voice? That's because I had 10 needles put in my thyroid, so
Oh.
it's still working itself out. You guys did an incredible job with this budget, so congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Somerone, thank you. We did not receive notice. Our staff liaison is Megan Serling Young. And if it was not for the fact that Mr. Salmarone actually attended the reparations meeting last Tuesday, we would not have known that we were required to submit a budget. And Megan did receive a notice, but because we don't fit into the box of the Greenbelt Way in terms of boards and committees, she thought that didn't refer to us. But Mr. Salmarone made it very clear that we had to submit something. So we did, with our staff liaison help. We expect to complete this work this year. Our charge will be completed this year. And we've learned a lot since working with the African American Redress Network that many of us did not know about reparations work. So we're also learning from them as we go. But Megan looked at everything that we have to continue doing. And what we submitted was money to continue our outreach work, which we continue to do. We interviewed, I think, at least 20 people ourselves, which is not what the Reparations Commission is supposed to be doing. We're supposed to have other people to do that work. We are not supposed to be that type of committee, but we have been doing the work. So we will continue the outreach, and we requested money for that. And we've also submitted reports, quarterly reports, so you will know exactly what we're doing. We've asked for an additional $3,000 for the editing and publishing the commission report. We had originally, and Megan thought it was going to be about $3,000 to complete that, but both Tom Adams, as you know, who just recently published his book, and Rima, who's in that industry, said, you don't have enough money for that. This is when we sent this quick budget out to the commissioners. So we came back and we sent a new request to Mr. Salmarone, and he said, we have to come and speak to you all about that. So that would bring the budget up to 29, which is less than last year, but we want to finish this. So I will entertain your questions.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Questions? Well, we do have a work session coming up. I think it's next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, with the Tri-Bessie group that you're working with.
Yes. Yeah, we
there's
saw that privacy for your phase 3 is not being included, and that's really unfortunate because we know that some of what we expect the recommendations to be is probably going to be in tandem with the work they would have been doing. So that's going to make the enforcement or the final work to actually do something with reparations difficult. Yes.
I don't know if you can put the budget
Oh,
back
I
up.
can put it back up.
Okay, just a quick question. You had asked about you had put in your budget the transcription services.
Yeah.
What does that,
We have a number of interviews that we've done. One is 3 hours long. So one of the things that we're learning from AARN is that costs money to actually get them transcribed and put in a form that people can just read. So that's what that's for.
Do you plan on having more of these in the future?
Now, what we're trying to do is going out personally and just writing the notes,
Okay.
because that was a lot. That took a lot.
One suggestion to potentially bring down the cost is that there are like AI transcription services that you can utilize where you could pay a really nominal fee for the year, or you can pay by month. And that will automatically transcribe it as it's being heard. And it summarizes it, it will say who's saying whatever. And then that would then simply mean that you'd have to go back and validate,
Mhm.
but it pretty much summarizes it and
Okay.
then gives you the full transcription in addition to the summary.
Okay.
So there may be a way, looking at, and I can talk to you about that, there may be a way to bring that cost down.
Good.
Utilizing those services.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I have done that. So I sometimes have to clean up captions for videos at work. And so I've used like YouTube's transcript, which is not really AI, but then go back and clean it up. And it is faster than typing it yourself. The one thing that I think we should be careful of is the ethics of AI transcriptions, and make sure that we research whatever company that we're using and make sure that they have used appropriate methods for and paid appropriately for whatever training resources they have for their AI. That's just something that I would like to ensure that we do
Yes.
if we choose one of those.
Yep.
This is something we could explore. The space is building a language model internally that's being powered by their own technology. So I heard Shamar speak about it, and it sounds super cool, beyond my comprehension, but it sounds like he's got an AI computer.
They do transcription?
I'm thinking that the AI transcriptions tool is using the language models, and so if it's trained, it will be able to do transcription.
Shamar.
service. That would be Shamar's AI robot that he's building.
Robots? Oh,
I do have a quick question, and that's with the editing and publishing the commission report. So the report, will it live on a website, or is it going to be a document, or is it going to be?
You'll get a
multimedia?
document. You'll get a document, and once you approve it, it can go on the website. But you will get the draft.
Okay, because you were talking about the transcriptions and whatnot, and
Yeah.
people talking, and I suppose there's a video, or was?
We already have interviews that we've already done, and we need to have them transcribed.
Right, but you can't really put that in a report, but you can put it on a website.
Yeah, yeah. If they're transcribed, it can be in the report.
Yeah, it's a little more powerful. when you
I
see
know.
the person seeing it with captions. Sometimes the captions are helpful. Yes, Mr. Summerall.
Mr. Mayor, Dr. Rosado made a reference to the phase 3 of the privacy work that is not included in the budget. Unfortunately, we just didn't have room. We've made so many cuts. That comes to the proposal is for 38,000. So should council want to fund it, it would be this pot of money that you have here.
Council, any additional questions, thoughts? Okay, Dr. Rosado, thank you so much for your. work.
Thank you, and I'm gonna follow up with you, because maybe we can reduce this.
And it sounds like maybe it stopped raining. Soaked. It sounds like maybe it stopped raining, so maybe you won't get soaked.
Okay, well, at this time, we're going to move on to Dr. Caitlin McGrath is with us, and she's going to give us an update on the Greenbelt Cinema. Hey, welcome, Dr. McGrath.
Hi, good to see you all. So, being mindful of everybody's time, I will be quick. There aren't many slides. So if we can go to the first slide, please. Thank you. This is, I realize maybe too small to see, but I just wanted to update from last time. I added on the, most recent year. So you can see that we had a very rough 2023, but things are improving in 2024. And then if you go to the next slide, I've made a graph that is perhaps illustrates that. Yeah. So the sort of don't pay attention to that red line. It's crazy, but that's because there were COVID relief grants. And so that's why we had a lot and then it dipped and then we got more. But in general, you can see most of the little, to me, it sort of looks like pieces of yarn are headed in the right direction. The one exception being box office, and that's just because 2023 was the year of Barbenheimer, so it was sort of exceptionally high. But overall, we're headed in the right direction. Next slide. And including in our expenses, things are improving. It's still not as quick as we would like, and we're still not keeping pace with our expenses. Our revenues are not where they were pre-pandemic in terms of ticket sales and concessions. Just not as many people are coming back to the movies. However, we are trying to close the gap. And I know this is one of the pre-questions that we got about our end of year campaign. We made a very ambitious ask of 100,000 and we ended up around 82, 83. So it was not, we didn't close the goal, which is always hard as a fundraiser to not meet the goal that you set for yourself, but it was more than double anything we had raised previously in an end of year that was not tied to a capital campaign. So we were pleased to see that go fairly well. Some other highlights that I wanted to share in the next slide. There's been a lot of talk about the importance of neighborhood cinemas, and I wanted to share this. We are not featured in this story. This one is Boston based, but there are people that I know in the industry that are in this story, and it really, if you're interested, it's in the Christian Science Monitor, and it's a really good piece about the importance of what cinemas do in their communities, nonprofit cinemas like ours. And I just wanted to highlight it and to say that, we're very lucky that we do have the city support that helps keep us going. Not all communities have that. If you go to the next slide, the East Street closure sparked a lot of stories, and it's sad to see that one close. I will say it used to be independent, and then it was Landmark, which is a nationwide chain, and then it closed. So I think it closing doesn't necessarily say that, obviously we are not closing. And it speaks more to the importance of theaters staying truly independent, because that's where you get, community buy-in, whereas when you have a big corporation, they just are looking at the bottom line. We are featured in that Capitol News Service story on the left about Maryland independent theaters. And we also, next slide, please. I was asked to participate in a round table on ABC. Yeah, so that was very nice. And this, so we were, it was me, and then right next to me is Tony Gittins from the DC Film Festival. And of course, on the left there, that's the profile of the great Arch Campbell. So that was a great discussion with Tommy McFly, who in the next slide, we first made a connection because he came out, if you remember, for opening night of Wicked. So the next slide there is when we were having one of our many, did it go? Just the next, yeah. So we were very lucky to get a fair amount of press coverage this year. And when Tommy McFly was here, as soon as we were on TV, because we had 4 or 5 little hits throughout the night, the phone just started ringing off the hook. Well, you still have tickets for Wicked? And, so there are people coming in who had never been to us before. So it was really wonderful. And I was very grateful to Tommy for reaching out to ask us to participate in the roundtable, talking about in light of East Street's closure. So that we hope will continue to buoy us, that marketing and PR and all that is one of the more challenging issues for us. Unlike East Street or Avalon or AFI, we are not on a main street, a main thoroughfare where people can drive by and say, oh, look, there's a cinema. So we're constantly battling that, but we're hoping this kind of coverage helps. Next slide, please. I wanted to give you a few highlights of other improvements that we have made in this past year. We just had our second film premiere for the Silver Oaks School. They come to us for between 8 and 10 weeks, depending on the year, to work on a project. Last year, they were working on environmental PSAs. So we give them a topic and a mode. This year, they chose social justice commercials. So they all had to come up with a product that would solve a social justice issue, which was actually really creative to see them think about. Those aren't 2 things that you would normally think of as putting together. And for them to understand what, equality and inequity really means. And so how could they try and see a problem and find a solution was wonderful. And they work together in small groups, and then they each produce, a short film, and then we premiere it for their families, and they have to get on stage and they have to write their script and talk about it. So it's a real wonderful learning opportunity. And it's something that we're really happy to do as part of our media lab. And then that sparked the idea of a collaboration this summer. So we will be offering a youth program for that final week when Creative Kids Camp ends, and Pine Tree, they have one more week, but I think a lot of us, if we have kids that have gone through the program, the kids in Creative Kids don't always necessarily want to go to the Pine Tree Camp. They're very different camps. And so this is a nice opportunity for us to still serve those families. So we will be partnering with Gate to offer 5 days of film fun, basically, where they're going to be doing a similar thing to what we do with Silver Oaks, where what we've learned is that we work with the summer camps. This would be our 5th summer, I think, of doing it, or 4th. And it's wonderful to have time with them, but we only get them for about 45 minutes each time. And this will allow us to do a lot more and accomplish a lot more, and really get into the creative work with these kids of, the basic goal is that we want to work with these kids who are so digitally native that they're just very, very good at being passive consumers, and we want them to be active creators. And so that's what this summer's initiative will be all about. And then, yes, and then the very last thing, of course, I know hopefully you all got my email about our 10th anniversary. Our VIP event starts at 3, but for the general public, it's from 4 to 8 on the 3rd of May. If you can believe it, it has been 10 years. And we're going to do something a little bit different. So we're going to have a really fun night of film trivia. So you can come on your own, or you can buy a table, a group of 8, and you'll be competing for various prizes, both from the community and from the cinema. And then in the VIP event, if you are interested, Arch Campbell is actually coming. He has a new book out called The Accidental Critic, and he'll be signing copies of the book. So you want to meet Arch, you get to do that before the event. Then we do trivia. And then after that, we're going to spill out into the center, and we'll have food trucks and more celebratory things, and a raffle and music and activities for kids. So if adults want to come to the film trivia and then meet the rest of your family, afterward at the food trucks, or if you just want to come for the food trucks and the piñata, you can do that as well. So that's our overall summary. And I'm of course happy to take questions.
Did you say piñata?
Did I say piñata? Yes. Well, yes, we are going to have a piñata. We really wanted to break the piñata, but then we thought this is going to be in front of the mother and child, and nobody wants a bat swung around that. Also, it's concrete, and so we probably don't want children like diving for candy. So it will be a symbolic piñata, and then there will be things that are distributed in a less crazed fashion.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, so, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, but one just in terms of what goes on day-to-day basis at the theater. I was wondering, with the squiggly chart.
Yes.
With the income, it sort of looks
Sure.
like a neural network or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but you've been working with private organizations sometimes and leasing out the space. So how is that just in terms of how the revenue is coming in? Is that a larger portion? Is that a growing portion of your revenue?
From the second screen space, you mean?
Second screen and the first screen as well. Like I thought I saw something
you
up
mean,
on the.
when we rent the space out to other
Yes.
groups. Oh, I see. Yes, we have actually in that chart. I can tell you, because I'm sorry, I know it's a little bit blurry on the big screen, and for my ever aging eyes. Last year was 30,000 in rentals, 2023, and then 2024 was almost 42,000. So it is increasing. And the second screen, well, both spaces are popular, but especially the second screen, we're seeing more and more folks wanting to do birthday parties. We've had a wedding because it's a really perfect size. 40 people is really manageable. And of course, the rental fee is a lot lower for that. And you've got the media lab side where you can have cake and pizza. And so, yes, that has definitely helped.
Well, that's great. Any business meetings or annual meetings or anything in there?
Well, we have done some things with the city and we have done, we did an event with the Greenbelt Business Alliance. We still are trying to find a way to reach more folks through the Chamber of Commerce. So that is something I think would be really great. And something that we have had in the past, but not since the pandemic, is businesses that want to do like a staff appreciation event. And we're perfect for that as well. If you have a small staff, you can be in the second screen. If you've got a much larger staff, if you want to have something that's, you know, employees and their families, we've done that kind of thing before.
Well, gosh, how would somebody find out if they wanted to lease the space or use the
That's-
space? How could they find out how to do that?
Thank you. That's a great question. So if you go to the website, we have a rental form that you can fill out there and it goes straight to our staff member who handles rentals and she'll get back to you very promptly with more questions and set it up. So it's quick and easy.
Cool. Other questions, Member Tim?
Yeah, and I think you gave us the general status update.
Yeah.
I'm curious, have you been able to collect any metrics about the new branding and if that's how much that has helped, or is that it's a little bit hard to quantify, I understand.
Yeah, well, we have done some targeted Facebook ads. So, and we worked with someone here, local, who is very good, Julia Griffin, if anybody is looking for somebody who can do, you know, analytics of data. She's excellent at doing, we did an A/B campaign and an ABC campaign to see which ones were kind of hitting with folks more. We did some of that directly around the branding and then some that are more specifically around our series, and some of those like cult classics kind of lean into the younger, fresher branding more. And we have seen good responses out of that. And we can directly tie it to an increase in ticket sales for a special event, for instance. So we are, and that is actually a really effective way for us to measure our impact. So in terms of, you know, the KPIs on that, we're seeing a really great return on our investment because it doesn't take a whole lot. In fact, you don't want to spend too much on the Facebook ads. It's sort of the sweet spot, you know, around $100 for about a month's run. So that's very reasonable as far as advertising goes. And the other piece of it that we're just getting into now through the help of nonprofit Prince George's and the Catch a Fire organization is getting someone to help us with our Google Analytics. So that will be another piece of this of tracking.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I had one more. I think last year when you came to us, you were going to rent the space above what's now Sunrise Caribbean. Did
Yeah.
that happen? And what is that space being used for?
Well, it's supposed to be office space.
Okay.
And we are in a familiar place of being in a bit of a holding pattern with DPI. So we
DPI.
here we are again. That's fine. We know it well. We were held up by some documents that were supposed to be supplied by the owner. And we have just finally this past week got the owner to engage a contractor to complete those missing documents, floor plan, life safety, that kind of thing, occupancy load. And as soon as those are completed, then we can hopefully, where's all the wood, get our use and occupancy, because we've renovated the space. It's beautiful. So we're waiting for that last piece and then we'll be able to use that.
You think May 3rd, it may be?
It would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah. I mean, I've speculated on the day so many times, I don't dare speak a new one, but yeah.
Councilmember McKinney.
Does the stage in the theater accommodate like performance actually on the stage, or is it too narrow? I'm trying to visualize it.
Yeah, it is. It's a tricky thing. It's because the screen is curved, it's deepest at the middle part, but then it gets narrow toward the sides. So we can have some limited performance there, but it's really quite limited also because the stage, the screen is very fragile. It's perforated to let the sound come through, which means you could bump it and then that's a $5,000 to $10,000 mistake. So we're very cautious about who we let on the stage, and are very clear about all those rules. It is also acoustically, depending on what kind of performance. We have done some live music, but the acoustics of a cinema are deadening so that there's not reverb from those massive speakers bouncing. And of course, live performance needs a bouncy light space. So it's challenging in that way. However, we are, through the bond bill, we are going to be making improvements to the stage, which will allow us to lower it and bring it out a little bit to make it more feasible to have other kinds of events and performances and that sort of thing.
Dr. McGrath, thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
10 years, it seems like just
I
yesterday.
know. It's true. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's
Okay, we
exciting.
have one question. Yes, Mr. Hartman. And then we really need to move to Greenbelt Cares.
Again, Michael Hartman, 2 Court Garden Way. Just to begin with, I think that the cinema is worth every dollar you give to it for several reasons. In addition to the programming, fabulous programming and movies and other events. Another contribution the cinema makes is to the Roosevelt Center restaurants, theaters, Jenner's Joe, Sunrise, and the cafe. We all benefit from the movie theater and, for that matter, Greenbelt Arts Center, because people like to come and chat after the movie and discuss it. And so we've seen a lot of people. I can speak for the cafe in that we have people coming in after the movie to talk about it, and it's one of the contributions that the cinema makes that may not be so apparent to everyone, and that's why it's very, very helpful for Roosevelt Center and the merchants. And in summary, that the theater really adds to the life, daily life of the community, and I totally support and encourage you to give as much as you can to the theater and support it in as many ways as you can. And also, Dr. Graff, you also advertise, right? You have limited advertising before shows, which is another way to encourage businesses to participate in efforts. All right, thank you.
Hey, real quick, Dr. McGrath. So in terms of Roosevelt Center and working with the other businesses and marketing, it's been a few years since before COVID. You had chaired that Merchants Association for many, many years. You know, God bless you. You put so much life into that. But I'm just wondering, with marketing now and with the contractors or consultants you may be working with, are any plans on sort of doing a collaborative kind of a marketing campaign, bringing people to Roosevelt Center with the cinemas, one of the hubs?
Right. Well, the group itself does not function any longer, the Roosevelt Center Merchants, which, but I think the Business Alliance is a wonderful opportunity to have more of a unified front in that regard. I also hope that somewhere in the conversation about signage, and I know that before Kevin Simpson left, he was looking into the light pole signage. There was a company where you could get, not that we would designate it an arts district or anything, but you could kind of make things seem more unified there with a kind of a graphic or something that could be on the light poles. It's outside of the holiday season, because of course that is a wonderful, when it's the holiday, I don't know what they're called, the light pole banners and the lights and all that, it really feels like it's a, a coherent space. And so something that brings some of that energy would be really wonderful.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem?
That makes me think of something. Have we ever thought about putting like an auxiliary cinema sign, like right there on Greenbelt Road, maybe in the new Armory space that lists also what the what's showing? Just because you commented that people don't see it. I mean, they won't see the theater, but they might see that there's an event that I didn't even know there was a theater there. I want to see Wicked or whatever.
Yes, I mean, that would be amazing. We would, of course, we would welcome that. I think that, any improvement to the gateway signage, would help a lot, because people just you have to really be trying to come here to come down into Roosevelt Center. So I know that it was something that I believe it was, again, to Kevin, that Dan from the co-op had brought up that there was this sign in Maine, and it just happened to be in a community where my husband was at a conference there, and he sent me a picture of the same sign, and it was a very simple banner. You could get something fancier, but it basically just said, it was sort of at a crossroads, and it was sort of poking fun of saying like generic, mall stuff that way and then like really cool small town this way. Something like that, that just kind of says like, you really want to maybe make a detour down here. It's going to be worth your while. Something like that, I think would be very in keeping in Greenbelt as well.
And I was even thinking of something that could be changed out like the marquee that would update with what the current,
I
what the
would love
current,
it. I would love it. This is also, I'll just speak briefly to the bond bill. There is one item in there that I'm very much hoping that Maryland Historic Trust will change its mind about. And I think they just need a further clarification that one of the improvements that we want to make is just to the portion where the letters go to, there's a company that does very tasteful digital signage so that we could have that in place of what we have right now, which is an incredibly perilous system of, if you've seen us up there climbing a ladder and hoping that we don't, there's not a big gust of wind to click these plastic letters in. So, maybe as a part of that, there is also some this company does signage of all kinds. So we could ask them if that was of interest, something that could advertise what's going on at New Deal that night and what we're doing. And, let's spread the love, but yes, we'd be very glad to talk about that.
thing to look into.
Yes.
Councilmember McKinney?
Yes.
Just a quick question. Is
Yeah.
there like an association for independent movie theaters?
Yes.
I went over the holiday, I went to an independent theater in Boston, West Newton,
Uh-huh.
and they had a Wicked sing-along. I took
Yeah.
my niece. It was like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if the association was a way to get additional strategies and tips and things that people are doing.
Absolutely. I belong to 3. So one of them is Art House Convergence, which is the closest to us because it's mostly nonprofits, independents doing exactly what we're doing all over the country. And then the other one is the Independent Cinema Alliance. So that is smaller, but it's for profit and not for profit. And then the other one used to be called NATO. Thank God they just changed their name because I no longer have to say, no, not that NATO. And now they are called Cinema United. And so they're the big lobbying firm for all cinemas. And they are international and they are the ones that run CinemaCon. So I belong to all 3 and I attend conferences when I can and webinars almost weekly for all of them. And it's a really wonderful way to network because we're all just trying to hang in there. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yep. I'm going to
We
get out of
really need to pivot to Greenbelt Cares. Mr. Hartman, can your comment wait?
Real quick.
Just a reminder that there are 3 venues in Roosevelt Center that bring people in from all over the region, the Cafe, Greenbelt Arts Center, and the theater. And something that would help all 3 of us we're the ones who really do bring people in from all over the region to those 3 venues. And I think anything you can do for us would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's why I asked about the joint marketing. Of course, Generous Joe's, they bring in people from all over the world. Steak and cheese hoagies. So if we can go ahead and pivot to Greenbelt Cares, we've got some very comfortable chairs for you right here.
But I think you have to share the microphone.
Yeah.
So Dr. Park, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Crystal Beatty, welcome.
Assistant Director Beatty.
Pleasure to have you here doing such crucial, vital work for Greenbelt. Mr. Summerall, did you want to frame things up?
I don't know that CARES needs an introduction. Amazing work every day, touching lives in so many different ways. I will highlight that the significant change that you're seeing in this budget is the moving multiple positions back to ARPA funding. One counts for various reasons. One, the council had made a commitment, a long-term commitment to support CARES expansion programming through its ARPA funding. So there's already an expectation to continue funding much of the ARPA funded activities for as long as we could. When we got clear guidance that was possible, we're working with Dr. Park and the team here to make sure that we could support that programming for as long as possible. When we hit that budget constraint, we saw that also as an opportunity to reduce the burden on the general fund and utilizing the ARPA money while continuing to provide those services like crisis intervention, the counseling services and so on. And Dr. Park can speak in greater length to it, but that is the most significant change in the budget. So you'll see that overall, it looks like expenses are going down for CARES, but be mindful that that's because we're shifting the cost burden over to ARPA funds. And the expectation will be that for next year, when ARPA funding runs out, that we would have to revisit that funding structure for those positions and look to make room in the general fund for them. Did I miss anything, Dr. Park?
No, the only, thank you. And so the only thing I would add to that is that the other thing that was moved was, the city gets other grant funds, one from the Department of, Family Services, and that was also moved, to another part of the budget. The decision was made to only show funds that, come from the general fund here, and then the other funds, they wanted to show elsewhere to kind of differentiate them. And then we also get some transfer funds from Greenridge House that help support mental health services at Greenridge House. And then also an assistant for our service coordinator who helps her with the 100+ residents of Greenridge House and serving them. So that is the main change in the funding. As you'll note here also, we're hopeful, right? I have reached out to the county. Whether youth service bureaus like Greenbelt Cares will continue to receive the $105,000, and I have not heard back, but we've also been in contact with some county council members, just trying to find out what's happening in the budget, because as you know, the county is also having to make some decisions and choices. And then Crystal can talk about, we've had changes. The SAS grant comes down from the State Department of Aging. And so that we're currently getting about 198,000 for, and that provides support services at Greenridge House to allow residents to have, if they need support, to be able to remain living independently at Greenridge House. And it offers programming to them, food services, housing, cleaning, right, nursing services if they need it, just to, again, help somebody age in place. Yeah, meal services. And then the SAIL grant, which was the Seniors Avoiding Isolation and Loneliness, is a new grant that Crystal has acquired for the city, and that'll provide, that is helping to pay for, again, some mental health services, and then our health coordinator who coordinates the nursing program. And that provides to Greenridge House and seniors in the community, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And then the HUD grant is probably our most worrisome, waiting to hear what's happening. So Crystal and I were, as I'm reading again what I wrote here. So I think it clarified the questions that were asked. The federal grant time is a calendar year. So we were funded for the calendar year 24, we've been funded for, we've received those funds. We're waiting for the new budget, right? The FY25 budget, the federal budget, to be approved to start receiving those funds for the calendar year of 25. And so that's where the concern comes. And Crystal, we haven't heard that they've been cut, but we haven't heard that it's been approved.
Correct.
Um,
Because of continuing
yes.
Was it in the continuing resolution?
Continuing resolution, it's funding the staffing that on a given day is at one level and potentially lowered. So my grant manager is still employed, and what we're saying at this point is because of continuing resolution, it doesn't allow for grant funding. So right now, we're just waiting. We're in a holding pattern as to whether or not those funds will be approved by the time that it goes to Congress and it's the full budget. You have to wait to have the budget approved in order to be awarded grant funds through HUD currently. For the
Then-
service coordination program, separate from
Yeah.
funding the housing,
Subsidies.
We'll have to make sure that we get that information in front of Congressman Ivey. He's fighting for us there down in Washington, DC. So, this is such a difficult time in Greenbelt, so much uncertainty about what's going to happen next. And the budget reflects that somewhat. But I had a couple of questions just about our ability to provide emergency assistance and the emergency case manager, for example, zeroed out. I don't know if that was moved over into special projects.
So
Special
the
project.
emergency case manager position was the one that worked with the ARPA funded, like rental assistance, mortgage assistance, childcare, educational scholarships. And since those programs have ended, that position ended at the end of December, 2024. So that position no longer is funded because those programs ended. And so we do have, some case management services in through the Gale program that are working with Crystal's team to do the food assistance programs to connect people with resources and those types of things. And then CARES is still connected to the GILA fund. And so we're able to help folks with when funds are available through GILA with some rental assistance. But the emergency case manager position was not continued funding because it was really dedicated to those programs.
Right, right. And I understand that. It just seems like that we may be facing more and more calls for emergency assistance and just being able to point people in the right direction. That's why I was asking just about
Right.
the number of responses in 2024, 2025, and just looking ahead. What do you think is going to happen? I can't really see anything other than more requests coming in.
Absolutely. And we do receive requests and we provide them resources in the county, but most of those county resources, the county's ERAP, their emergency rental assistance program has been defunded, and they're not going to continue that. And then other programs like Mission of Love or UCAP, United Citizens Against Poverty, rely on federal funding. And so like our program, they haven't gotten their grant funds yet this year. So it is a real concern. I'm not, we don't have many resources to send folks to. Food assistance, we're still providing the produce distribution. We connect people with a variety of food banks and food resources in the county. But it is a concern and one that, yeah, I don't have a great solution for.
Yeah, there's no easy answers.
Yeah.
With the food distributions, can we, Trinity down there on Good Luck Road, they do food distributions. Can we work with them more actively somehow?
What, could you clarify work with them as far as, as far as referring people to them for services or? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just referring people to them, but actually actively partnering when they have their food distributions, publicizing it because they're on the eastern part of town. We do a lot of things in the west. And do
What
things
we
in the center.
normally, what we have available is referrals through, we have a list of food pantries that we refer people to. So that would be someone, I have to check and see if they're actually on the list.
They should be on the list.
Because what we use is a source through the Capital Area Food Bank where all of their community partners, you put in the zip code and it gives you a list of surrounding pantry programs.
And they
So they
are.
may be on that list if they're part of the Capital Area Food Bank.
Yes, they are.
Okay, then they should be already on our list. We publicize because we're once a month and people like to eat every day. So
I'm in there,
So ideally, we want to
Several times a day.
Actually, several times a day, right? So we actually try to give people options outside of us, and to, of course, refer them to the Capital Area Food Bank's website because they have other resources there as well.
Yeah, so I'd like to ask you to do that.
Okay.
Other questions? One thing I noticed is just with some of the projections, it's hard to say what's going to happen next. And maybe some of the senior programs have been shifted over into special projects, but it seemed like there was a drop in the numbers for seniors served from 255 to 155. So
That was the interns.
Yes, for the interns, that would.
I think you're looking right at senior served under the interns.
yeah, that was on page 190.
190. One of the things I can say as far as interns are reflective as far as the number of people that we can, yeah. Interns are reflected based on the number of interns that we have, and what we're seeing in some of the universities, for example, the number of nursing interns, depending on the rotation size of students for that particular semester, it determines whether or not we will have a rotation. And a rotation could be 6 to 8 interns at any given play. If those interns are not available, then that drastically will reduce the number of people that we would serve in a semester. So unfortunately, not all of the schools have been able to have a rotation as scheduled with us, and that impacts the number of people that we can serve during that time. We since, though, have picked up a new partnership with the University of Maryland School of Nursing out of Baltimore, and we're working with the RN to BSN program to bring RNs to our programs. But the challenge there is their 1 to 2 person placements. So it's not like, oh, we have a team of 6 nurses coming from Bowie State, for example, to provide services. The level of supervision is less because they're already registered nurses, but the sheer volume of people that we can serve when a rotation doesn't pan out to us, it becomes, lower. So it's up to the university as to whether or not we can accommodate that number of people.
Yeah, and you guys have done a great job in terms of partnering up with the university nursing programs and whatnot, the interns. It's one of the many outstanding things that you do. So I think American University, they've got a program, and they were doing screenings over at Beltway Plaza not too long ago. Maybe we can reach out to them. And get them in.
Not a problem. I don't have a problem making an ask.
Councilmember Niesel.
I was just looking at the Capital Area Food Bank, find food assistance, and I don't see Trinity Church listed, actually, surprisingly.
Okay.
So it might well be worth reaching out to them and seeing if they're even accepting community members, because I know that with resources dwindling, they might not be able to serve their congregation plus extra community members.
Okay.
So
I would reach out to them first of all to see, are they interested in joining the Capital Area Food Bank to cut down their cost of food purchasing and that sort of thing. The membership is waived, so I don't think that that should be an issue, but it's all depending on what direction they want to go. But that's not a problem.
I want to thank you for that resource, because I will be sharing that as more and more people need it. Thank you.
Want to mention about the federal?
Oh, so one of the challenges that we've seen is that funds have been cut from things like the emergency food program, which is having some level of impact, but they're trying to source dollars from other allotments of money to fund resources for that. Now, I was speaking with someone from the emergency food program actually today, and what they're starting to see are, for example, if they had 85 trucks scheduled to deliver, 35 to 40% of those trucks have been canceled for varying reasons. Now, they do have trucks that get canceled just because of shipments or just because of the sheer volume of food that didn't make it to become available during that scheduled time. So that's not unusual to have a truck canceled, but that sheer volume of trucks being canceled is concerning. But they're diligently working, trying to source food and funds to meet some of the needs. They are doing pop-ups though, 2 in Prince George's County, 2 in the District of Columbia, and 2 in Northern Virginia, starting in April. So actually, I think I sent to Chandria the list of those dates. They're going to be at grocery stores in the area in Prince George's County, Giant, and one of the is a Giant. I can't remember if the other one's a Safeway. Okay.
Closest was the Giant Atlanta. I saw the notice. Chandra already sent it out through the city email list because I already saw that today.
So yeah, so they're trying to be as responsive as possible, trying to get ahead of things, because it takes a while to get food in circulation and through the process. If there's federal funds, they did access some federal dollars, but it's on a large scale and has to trickle down. So by the time it gets to you, it could be months into, the process to get it to the partners, community partners. So it is a work in progress. One thing that I did want to note, and this really doesn't fall into any of the things here, one of the things that we're starting to see is older adults helping their adult children And as far as financial assistance, which in some instances has impact on their ability to cover the cost of things that we consider essentials. So people are digging into their nest eggs to help their kids, save their home and pay the mortgage and things like that. And that's going to be very trying. And it's a lot. It is a lot for a lot of the older adults who really didn't have much in some instances, but they're willing to do that to help their children. So that's a trend that we're starting to see.
And emerging trend.
Hardship.
I just so concerned about what we'll be seeing in the next 6 months. So I was going to ask a question about outreach, but Mayor Pro Tem, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I think this is sort of related because it's thinking about the resources that people need. But, and I think there was a brief answer because I'd sent in this question ahead of time, but we've had a lot of people offering to help with people who need things, whether that's resources. I mean, I've seen a couple of posts that people just individually have posted after the fires in Franklin Park, and then people stepped up and said, oh, I have clothes in that size, that sort of thing. And I know you mentioned the connecting people to nonprofits, but is there a way, and this may be also related to the program, to the sort of some of the things that Melissa Ehrenreich is proposing related to that. But just from your perspective, do you see a way for the city to be involved in maybe, I don't know what it is, whether it's just brokering those connections or just collecting needs that then can be outsourced to the community? I mean, not the food necessarily, but things like clothing or furniture or household goods, that sort of thing.
So I think, right, in the past, we have relied on like the Red Cross and other community organizations who are set up to do that. So I think one thing we'd have to look at, like, how would we store things? Like if we were to get furniture, and then how do we make sure who it goes to? And so we would have to look at setting up a process and what the procedures would be, and then look at what kind of staff time that's going to take. And like how do we add that duty onto another staff person? So I think in the past, it has been community members who have kind of organized that. And we certainly did reach out to like the fire victims and sent them resources like Wider Circle and Forklift, where you can get free furniture and those kinds of things. So we do know there's a need there at times. It's just we haven't established a procedure or process or a staff to kind of manage those types of services. So that may be something to consider, but it would, likely be looking at, because a part of it is that emergency management. How does somebody know what the needs are, figure out who gets what? How do you like, if you start collecting clothes, you have to make sure it's cleaned and washed and it's not coming with any vermin on it or any, thing that then you could be spreading or bringing into your office if you're storing those clothes and those kinds of things. So it's just, but like, it's not, it sounds easy, but there's like things you have to think through and understand. And then if people don't want this stuff, even though it's been offered, they may or may not want it. And then what's our procedure for disposing of it or moving it on to the next group? So I think it's not impossible, but we would just have to really be thoughtful, I think, of set up a procedure and process and determine what staff would be involved in it and what duties they would, be assigned.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I was approached on Saturday by one of the fire victims, and this fellow needed furniture. He needed a bed frame and a mattress somehow. So I'll share that information with you.
Yep.
Council member.
I have a question about the monthly food distribution programs. I try to volunteer at the Thursday distribution at Spring Hill Lake, but I wasn't able to be there this month or in March. And I was just wondering if you had seen a decrease in people coming out since the recent executive orders, or are people still coming at the same rate as they used to? Because I know that people used to come at pretty fast and furious rate, like the food would be gone in like 45
We
minutes.
haven't had any return food, for lack of a better term, food that was not distributed to the people that sign up. So people there have because we manually have to load everything in the van and take it
Yeah.
over there, and it's stuffed by volunteers. So we have approximately 50 families that we serve when we do that distribution. And then if they do not show up, then it's given to those people that are present during that window of time. So we haven't seen a shift as far as less people wanting food. And I've seen that in other programs where we were afraid that where people gather, there might be some level of fear associated with signing up. As of now, we have not seen that. We're seeing new faces that need food. So I don't want to say well, I'm going to say the faces of hunger are changing here in Greenbelt. But we see different faces.
Okay.
So I don't see the decrease that we were expecting because of the fear of ICE.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was my
Yeah.
question. So thank you. I was hoping to be there to sort of assess for myself, and I
Yes.
couldn't be. So thank you.
Member Pope.
Yeah, and I can add to that a little bit because we at Spring Hill Lake Elementary School, we also do a food giveaway. And we have the trucks come and whole pallets come down, and we have a large amount of people come and pick up the food. So there's not that fear. They're really come and they pick up the food, and we have some very heavy boxes, and they're most grateful to get that food because there's a really big need and our lines seem to get longer.
Okay, hey, so just a couple more questions before we open it up. So with just in terms of financial support and donations, you mentioned the Gila Fund, how can people, if people want to donate money to the city for rental assistance or eviction relief or for food, which funds are available where people can make a contribution?
Sure. So through the city website and on the city Facebook, people can make donations to different funds that the city manages. So the rental assistance and emergency assistance fund is through Gila, which is the Greenbelt Interfaith Leadership Association. And so folks can make a donation electronically that way. They can stop by and drop off a check. And then I believe Gila is looking to see if they can come up with other ways to fundraise and continually get money. They do an annual Thanksgiving event, but they're looking to how to, on a regular basis, get monies coming in because the need is great. And right now, I think there's about $1,800 in the fund.
That's not a lot of money.
No.
That's not enough to do
No.
much of anything with.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
enough for 1 month. So that's the only fund, and that's a tax deductible contribution. I know some of the
Right.
clubs in town and organizations make regular donations.
Right.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, well, I was at the co-op the other day and they asked for rounding up for supporting CARES, and that was something new. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Right. So again, it's interesting that they're saying to support CARES, but the money is really for the rental assistance fund.
Okay.
So that was something that Gila, and I didn't know that was up and running yet because Gila hadn't told me that, that they were like how they were partnering. And it's the first time I think the co-op has done something like that, where you can round up your money and that little bit will accumulate and then the check will be sent, I guess, I don't know if they've worked out monthly or how often, to be contributed to the rental assistance fund.
Yeah, heck, Safeway does.
Yeah, Safeway
they
does
do
a lot
that.
of that too, yeah.
I don't know if they do it for CARES or for Greenbelt funds, but they definitely do that.
Yeah, I like that it's a more local thing though, that it's, because I feel like the ones at Safeway or at Giant, you can say, but it's usually one of the big like national organizations. But we might need to make sure that that we clarify what the funding is going for, that it's Greenbelt Cares, but it is through to this particular fund. We might need to talk to them about making sure I mean, I don't mind donating my extra however many cents.
That's right, but you don't
But we
want
should
it
make it
up.
clear where it's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes we just have to ask, and make the ask. Other questions? The final one that I wanted to just ask about was just in terms of outreach to seniors in particular, but also to some of our immigrant communities. Just so when we are we have so many great programs through CARES that can be helpful to youth, to be helpful to older people, to be helpful to all sorts of folks. So, not too long ago, I guess maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we kind of moved away from mailing out so much information. So the guide that we send out
The Gale Guide still goes out quarterly.
in the mail,
Mail.
Yeah.
snail mail. But are we trying to, are there some other ways that we can kind of reach more people?
Sure. So a lot of connection, especially to immigrant families and young people, is through the schools. And so that's one great referral source where they will tell folks about our programs or refer, if a child's having a mental health crisis to us. So our connection to the schools is key in terms of reaching people, because schools are somewhere that they trust, and they trust when a school tells them about a resource. And then we are on social media. So Catherine Farzin helps run our Facebook page and puts things out. And she has done a great job in cultivating a list of especially Spanish speaking residents. And then we have ones that we have in our mental health so that we can reach out to them with resources. We did when the first issues around the new administration was coming out and there was fear about ICE, we did, in partnership with Spring Hill Lake Elementary, a forum where we invited an immigration lawyer, and we had about 40 parents show up on the Zoom call so we could talk with them through it and help them understand their rights and what to do. So the schools are a huge piece of us connecting with those kids and families. And word of mouth. So people trust what their neighbors tell them. So if we've worked with a family and they've gotten some help and services and they tell somebody else, that's huge, especially, and Mrs. Pope, that it's huge in that, especially over in Greenbelt West. It's word of mouth is key. And then I think the other thing we found successful is yard signs. They're not necessarily going to our website or those types of more formal things, but yard signs they see, if they see them throughout their community, they read, and I think recreation does that too, where you do it on both sides, one on English, one in Spanish, is another great way to communicate. So you have to be in their community somehow to really get connection to them, is what we found works. And I'll let Crystal address working with seniors.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting because one of the advantages the Gale program currently has is we have a staff person that speaks Spanish, Arabic, and French. And to be able to serve some of the people, especially around our food insecurity areas, that it just makes our mission, we can deliver it to more citizens here in Greenbelt. I think that enabling them to apply for benefits and to have someone that they can speak to in their own language, I think is imperative about building rapport and establishing a level of trust. So for us, we're starting to see intergenerational families coming to the Gale program. So the daughter who speaks Spanish brings her mother with her for services. And we're starting to establish, because we're going into the home providing nursing services and things like that, that we're really starting to see the layers of families, especially in our international households, where there might be 2 or 3 generations living under one roof. And we're really starting to be impactful in that way. A lot of seniors have, because of COVID, sort of come online. And the way that they utilize both social media, the internet just in general, we've seen a change in how they're like, oh, you can just send me a Zoom link, which, 10 years ago, that was unheard of, but we're sort of excited to see that level. But there is a contingent of the population, and I'm sort of one of them. I still like to have a piece of paper, and people read the Gale Guide. They still read it, and they'll say, I read the Gale Guide, I got my copy, and they'll comment on something they saw, or they'll call and ask a question. And that's wonderful. But we also are aware that some of the people even read the Gale Guide who have left Greenbelt. So the idea that it's online or some form of social media or that sort of thing is extremely important. So we're sort of bridging that tech divide with people. But and sometimes we'll get, oh, I don't need it I don't need the paper copy anymore. I'll just get it, electronically. I like to hear that, but that's fine. We'll still mail it for those who want.
Right. So what's coming up next? With the health screening, it's so distressing hearing about county funding not being available for flu shots and screenings, but we're fortunate to have a hospital right down the street and CCI and other nonprofit healthcare organizations right here in Greenbelt. So maybe there's some way we can get some of those organizations to coordinate with us a little bit more.
We've identified, we're going to be working with Luminous Health to provide free flu shots, but they currently only offer them for adults 18 plus. So we're trying now to source a flu shot provider that's willing to do pro bono flu shots for children. The flu shots that were offered through the health department, which again, funding was diminished, so that was one of the things that was cut, provided flu shots for children 6 months of age and older. And historically, our event that we would have at Spring Hill Lake Recreation Center was the largest flu clinic that the health department would do in the county. So now we're, yes, we'll be able to serve a portion of the population, but we want healthy children in Greenbelt schools. So if anyone's watching at home that has a connection, truly, that has a connection that'll be able to provide this important service. I mean, we've seen in the news, children have died this year from the flu. So we're looking for community partners that can help us with that.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Do we have a sense of what the cost, how much funding would be needed to sort of take the place of what the county was providing before? And maybe that's not an answer you can give me now, but that might be helpful if we're trying to reach out to people to find alternate funding sources. If we knew sort of what ballpark are we talking? Are we talking 10,000? Are we talking 50,000? Like, I don't have a sense of how much a flu clinic costs.
Well, unfortunately, but true, this will be the first time I've had to go canvassing, but I'm open to looking into that and getting back to you, because and that we do have a nurse on staff, maybe we can offer, you insource some of, or partner with some of our schools to be able to offer the nursing piece to provide the injections and then supply the other. But I would want to partner with someone like CVS or someone who would source them, source the vaccine.
Councilmember Pope.
Possibly even with the school system, because the schools have nurses as well. We have 2 nurses currently in our school. So, I'm sure they can, give flu shots if we can maybe find a connection there somehow.
I don't know, maybe CCI. They work with kids. Well, there's a lot. So that's all the questions I have pretty much. Council members, are there other questions? I see we've got one. Mr. Orleans, please.
Thank you. A few minutes ago, a question was posed to Director Park about funds that residents and others could donate to help prevent eviction. And you mentioned that there were 2, and then you mentioned Gila. And I don't know of another fund other than Gila, but is there a second fund?
If I said 2, Gila used to have 2 funds and now they've combined it into one. So there's just one fund.
Fund in the city. It's administered by Gila that would help contribute to preventing evictions. And it's only got $1,800 in it. Okay. I had a specific question from page 189. I'll preface it by saying in this room in recent weeks, there have been a number of discussions about how Greenbelt could better translate for alternative language communities in addition to Spanish. Right? Ms. Beatty mentioned Arabic and French and possibly others. But on page 189, there's reference to bilingual community outreach coordinator in the Assistance in Living program. It's one person. I don't know, but I presume the bilingual means it's a Spanish speaking person. elsewhere in here, there are references to language translation, and I say, in this room recently, there's been a lot of discussion of it. I don't know how many employees of the city of Greenbelt, full-time or part-time, effectively speak languages other than English. But when it comes time to, say, translate for the connector or in a flyer on any subject, if we could utilize the services of these people, presumably it would be part of their job, or they would be compensated in addition if it's not part of their primary job. And we would be more effectively be able to communicate, not with all people in Greenbelt, but certainly with Spanish-speaking people in Greenbelt. That's one thing. On the same page, I had a specific question, and I note that the city manager indicated that some of these, for want of a better word, cuts will be taken up with ARPA-funded positions. And now if I can find it, family counselor 1 and 2. It was in fiscal year 25, we had 7/10 of full-time equivalent hours spent providing family counseling from two positions, a GC12 and a GC13. So I guess maybe that was 3.5 hours apiece. Or 3 part-time for each of them. It's not funded at all in 26. So, and I tried to look through here for some language suggesting under the ARPA funded positions, something for family counseling 1 and 2, and I did not find it. So that's an example, Mr. City Manager. Are those 2 part-time positions being funded
So
else?
I can answer. So the family counselor 1 and 2, it was one position. It was just somebody could be a family counselor 1 or it could be a family counselor 2 to fill that part-time position. It could be one or the other. So we renamed all of our counselors to be community mental health counselors. And so you'll see the 0.7 down here under grant ARPA funded positions, a community mental health counselor for the 0.7 for FY26. It's just, we renamed the position. And so it's down here. It hasn't been eliminated.
I thank you very much. I see the designation name change and I see the 0.7.
Thank you. We're past the time limit, so we got to move on. Thank you.
My last
Mr. Hartman,
question would have
please go ahead.
been,
Sir,
since
please,
since within the CARES department especially,
Mr.
there are so many part-time
Thank you.
positions. If that could
Mr.
be
Hartman, please.
explicated at some point by the city manager, I'd appreciate it.
We have one on line too. Ms. Rosenthal?
I'll defer to Laura. first.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes, welcome, Ms. Rosenthal. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to bring up sort of a half-baked idea, and I love everything that CARES is doing. I love the food distribution. And like I said, this is a half-baked thought because I was talking with a younger person that was going to bring this forward as a petition, and I can't remember who that person was. I was going to help them out. Anyway, this younger person and I were just discussing, there is some sort of systemic difference between the center city food distribution and the Spring Hill Lake. And from what I understand, it's sort of a resource issue of how many volunteers there are at Spring Hill Lake, how many staff people and pickup trucks there are to bring the food over to Spring Hill Lake or rec center. And so that people that live in the center part of the town are kind of getting a better deal than those in Spring Hill Lake. So I'm just wondering, is this best to bring up as a petition and a request, or to sit down with Ms. Park or I think it's Garcia that runs a program about how we can make the program a little bit more equal, regardless of what part of the city that you live in?
So thank you. I just want to clarify. So the same food is provided on both parts of town. So whatever is provided here in the center, the folks over in Greenbelt West get the same food. We package it up and take it to them. We do have people register over in Greenbelt West, and we can serve up to 50 currently families that register, and then we bring the food over to them. It's true, more people come to the center who are able to drive here. So we're really trying to serve those folks who maybe don't have transportation. And so we, based on the funds that we have and the resources we have, that's the system we set up, but the food is the same that goes.
Well, yeah, because
on
on the, I only did it like one time in each location, but it seemed to me, at least on the day that I did it, there were like maybe 9 or 12 different foods that you received if you were going to the community center. And if you were going to Spring Hill Lake, there were like 4 or 5. There wasn't even a table big enough to sort, and there were only a few volunteers. To me, and maybe this has changed, but you did not get the same variety of food in Spring Hill Lake. Plus, like I said, there weren't enough volunteers. Plus, right, you had to RSVP where you didn't have to RSVP in the center part of town. So again, if I did have concerns, who would be the best person to sit down with?
You, Ms. Rosenthal, feel free to reach out to me via email or call me. I'm in the office tomorrow and we can discuss that. But one of the things that we also tried to do, so for example, Mesa flour, our last distribution, we offered Mesa flour. We tried to also be sensitive to the population that we're serving and tailor certain things to certain populations that they have requested. So for example, on Greenbelt West, we have more requests for beans, rice, like I said, tomato products, Mesa flour, things of that nature. We're trying to be more culturally sensitive to the people that we serve. So there may be some level of difference. So one place might get something that they have requested, and another part of town may have some things that are different. And what we try to do is if you get Mesa flour, this side might get something different. The other issue is that in some instances, people do travel from Greenbelt West and come to Franklin Park. And we also do homebound deliveries as well. So depending on the volunteers that come, some of the things that we offer are quite heavy. When you combine the produce with the canned good items and that sort of thing, some people struggle with the ability, and our volunteers do, because many of our volunteers are, let's just say, above 40 years of age, and they're taking bags and bags upstairs and things of that nature. So it does become limited based on the ability for the volunteers to handle the merchandise. That's more for homebound delivery
Right.
drivers and things of that nature. But
'Cause
feel
again,
free to reach
yeah.
out to me and we can discuss this more in depth at a later
Okay.
time if you'd like to
Right,
discuss.
because again, things may have changed, but I thought the young lady on the staff said
That's the time limit.
that the pickup truck, they could only drive the pickup truck once, and therefore that was limiting. It was staff labor hours to drive a truck. And
Thank
the
you.
last thing, I know I'm over time,
Thank
but
you.
also
Yeah,
there was
you're
an
over time.
incredible large numbers of plastic bags being used to pack the food. It was horrendous, the number of plastic bags that were being used where they're banned in town anyway. So, all right,
Thank
it probably won't be tomorrow and it probably won't be me. I have to think of the young person that said they wanted to address this issue.
Thank you.
Trying to pass the torch and not do it all myself anymore.
Not a problem.
Thank you. Speaking of the different parts of town and the fact that there's registration, are you keeping records at all on the number of people from Greenbelt East that are utilizing or need the service? Because we've not had any food distributions in Greenbelt East ever, as far as I know.
We track all of the residents that participate, whether they're homebound, whether at Green Ridge House, whether they're drive-through. They have what's called a service insight card. It looks sort of like a credit card or a little thing that goes on your keychain. And we swipe that every time. So we're able to track Greenbelt residents, Greenbelt, non-Greenbelt residents, because there are some, we don't turn people away for food that have come through. So we do see sometimes people coming from neighboring communities, Berwyn Heights or something of that nature, that may find themselves driving through. We're able to track in that respect, ages, demographics, food allergies, how they ethnically identify, that sort of thing. So we are able to generate reports that way. We can't, because of the zip codes all being the same in Greenbelt, we can't say this many people from Greenbelt East. we have the data, but we'd have to go through hundreds of people each month just to say, what address is this, and figure out where it is on the map. So we're not able to identify Greenbelt East versus Greenbelt West as it relates to that.
Oh, I understand. Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I think something that, and I don't know, when Ms. Rosenthal talks about having been to the different distributions, but I think one of the things that you explained, Dr. Park, was that different weeks, different things come. So in theory, with some of the exceptions that Ms. Beatty was talking about in terms of different preferences and different requests, but there might be 4 or 5 different things one week at both locations. And then the next week, maybe they got more food and there's 7 or 8 different things. So it going to one place one week and then the other location the next week, you would see different things.
Correct.
Because depending on the week, it just varies what food arrives.
Correct, correct. Typically, our produce distribution, we're not aware of what's coming until literally it gets off the truck. Actually, let me stand corrected. For the first time, and I've been doing this for a long time, we got in advance the night before, oh, you're getting this. So we knew what we were getting. We always try our best to be able to meet the needs. And this is the other thing. If a person comes, we're not going to Greenbelt West for services, and then they come to the drive-through, we're not turning them down. So you potentially, if you needed to, you could come there and get in the car with your friends. So, yes, we don't turn people away.
Mr. Hartman.
Actually, Ms. Rosenthal brought up the same thing I was going to bring up, but she did it better than I could. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So if there are no Councilmember Pompey.
Just to comment on that, I usually volunteer at Greenbelt West, but I've occasionally volunteered in the center. And a lot of times in the center, we'll actually package up the food to be ready to go. So that's how I know that it's the same stuff, is because we're literally, like, if there's time, if there's, like sometimes there's time between people coming, or there's an abundance of volunteers, some of us will just be creating the,
Bags
packages. Yeah. So I think that, anyway, I'm just commenting on that because I've seen that happen. I participated in that.
One of the challenges, and one of the things when we were looking at alternative methods for people to access food as far as carrying food away, what we were finding was people weren't bringing bags. We asked for people to bring bags unless the city wants to supply reusable bags every time, which can be quite costly. We were just finding that if you have 2,000 pounds of onions that are individual, you have to bag them, and people are driving through. So we're not a market style choice option where people can come up to a stand and access food for free. So in order to keep the drive-through methodology here in Greenbelt for this side of town, we found that we just had to use the bags in order to, one, for it to be sanitary, because some of the bags that we've seen had come through, we could not utilize. And we don't recycle other people's bags from their home as well. So it's been a challenge. And we've worked with committees in Greenbelt trying to come up with a plan. And after talking with them back and forth, they agreed that there wasn't, unless we were going to supply reusable bags, that we didn't have an option.
Okay, thank you. Do we have thank you. Do we have someone online?
No, it was just Mr. Rosenthal, but can I have a follow-up to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I guess I wonder if we could look at least using paper bags instead of the plastic bags. I confess I have not volunteered at one of the food giveaways. I apologize. So I don't really know like what but I'm thinking I mean, there's the small like paper lunch bags that could take the replace of like the grocery store ones, like the produce small bags, or the co-op has the bags that have handles that do have limitations, because I broke one when I was taking my groceries out yesterday because I forgot my reusable bags. But I wonder if that's something that I understand the challenges of the reusable bags, and those are more expensive, but maybe we can look at least some paper bags instead of all the plastic.
We're open to the paper bags, but again, we're looking at the weight of the bags and the heaviness of the food that we supply. and do a price comparison on what that would look like as far as budgetized wise, but I'm open to
Yeah.
that.
But I was gonna say, if it's the plastic grocery type bags, a paper bag is gonna carry as much as like a plastic, like Safeway or giant shopping bag. Yeah,
The bags where you bag your onions and the potatoes and stuff, they're a lot thinner, right?
Mhm.
Because when I volunteered, I remember we had the little bags and they're really hard to get apart actually. And then we had to put the onions and the potatoes and whatnot, carrots or whatever you had from these huge bags into there. So if you have the smaller ones, just to pre-pack that type of food,
Mhm.
I think that's already challenging, but it could be done possibly, but it would take longer. So.
Councilmember needs, sorry, go ahead.
I'm open to looking at pricing on paper bags and just, I probably have to play around with some of the weight capacities because like, for example, a head of cabbage
Oh my.
and one grape is gonna break a paper bag. So at least the ones that are delivered to my house when I
Yeah,
get
or
one.
frozen
But-
chicken.
Yeah, that's what I was
You
gonna
know.
say, is that when I've done the food deliveries for Gives, I've always been surprised at how wet all the items are, I think, from being in the refrigerated truck. And so I did, when I was doing it with Carol one time, we tried to put them into our own paper bags. And by the end of my deliveries, which only took about a half an hour, 3 of the paper bags had already ripped through the bottom. So there are extreme limitations, and I understand that we want to be good for the environment. And for me, the priority is always going to be serving food to the people. So
Mhm.
I want to thank you so much for all the groups that you have worked with to try and address this issue. And I understand if plastic is the choice that we need to make right now.
Well, thank you very much. Dr. Park, Ms. Beatty, you do incredible work for the city of Greenbelt. And so many people depend on Greenbelt Cares in so many different ways, the budgetary request and actually hearing a little bit more about some of the programs and your vision for the next year. Really, really important. So during the budget session, I always really appreciate this particular session and being able to talk with you a little bit about the services that you're providing. It's really important what you do.
Thank
Yeah, thank you so much. So at this time, we're going to move on to some information items. Mr. Summerall, you have an information item?
Yes, I will be brief. Tomorrow, there's the County Coffee Connection at the Crown Plaza beginning at 9 a.m. And I've provided council with meeting dates and times to meet with Fire Chief. I apologize for confusion on my end. I thought we were going to make that a public meeting, but it turns out that it's meant to be a mayor's meeting or mayor's designees. So I've shared the information with council. How do you want to move forward? Let me know. We don't have to discuss it tonight. Just, I know publicly we announced that we were reaching out to the chief for a meeting. We have done so, but it's not going to be a public meeting.
Member Pompey?
Yes, I just wanted to talk about, I had sent in an email earlier. We got an email today from a Franklin Park resident about some issues that they're having with their apartment, and some things they're having difficulty resolving, and they met with code enforcement today, who's hopefully going to help them solve those issues. But when I responded to that email, I mentioned that I thought it was time for us to do a tenant meeting. And you had responded about doing a work session, and I just figured we'd talk about it here. But I think when I'm thinking of tenant meeting, I'm thinking more of an opportunity for them to really speak, and for us to share the resources that the city has to help them, because I think many residents actually don't know that they can call code enforcement and get their issues dealt with. So I think so that they can learn the processes. So I guess, I don't know if it's a town hall, but something that's more informational for them. Like, yes, give them the opportunity to share with us what's happening there, but also give us the opportunity to share with them the resources that the city has available to them to help them solve their issues. And I think if we can have it over in Greenbelt West, that would be ideal. And I also think we would have to really do targeted outreach to make sure people come, like flyering buildings, putting up notices. I don't know what else we could do, but I think we would have to make a pretty tremendous effort to make sure that folks turned up for it and turned out for it.
Well, it sounds like a good idea. Now, the management company, they had a community gathering. I guess it was about a year and a half ago, in the in the rental center and room was packed pretty much.
I remember, I think it was less than a year ago.
No, I don't remember exactly.
I don't remember the date, but yes, it was a gorgeous building. that we
All right.
had.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with Ms. Pompey, I think, but I don't think it's a work session. I think that it's either a town hall or it's a listening session. I think we haven't completely defined what those things are, but I think what we don't necessarily need for this purpose is like sitting around with Franklin Park Management and talking, we need that too. But this, I see as more of a more engagement and interaction. And I like the idea of sharing the resources. I think we had pretty good attendance at the Tenants' Rights Town Hall last week, but a lot of them were from Charlestown North, which, you know, they've clearly had some issues, but I think if we hold it over there, I think my concern about the Franklin Park leasing office is very nice, but it's not exactly neutral ground. So I'm not sure that that's the right place for this meeting. So I think I would propose either Spring Hill Lake Rec Center. The gym is terrible acoustics. We tried that before. I don't think that's a good idea, but the side room, I don't know that we will get so many people, we'd fill that up. Or working with the space and using, because they have a bunch of chairs up there and that would be a bigger space and at least is also in Franklin Park. I think either of those two are a better option because I think it's just not neutral territory if it's at the leasing office. And I think we're not going to necessarily get the same kind of feedback if we do it there.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't suggesting that we should do it there. I was just remembering that not too long ago, we were over there, a lot of residents here. Councilmember McKinney, did you have a comment?
Sorry, get used to it. If we do go with having some type of meeting with Franklin Park, I thought it'd be good to use it as an opportunity to also try to engage people to sit on the charter review committee and maybe apply for that because we're having challenges reaching out to that side of town. So that could be another thing as we're preparing materials for having something like that.
Very good, very good. So the council's sentiment seems to be that we should hold a town hall in Franklin Park to talk about tenants' rights issues.
This is what I'm hearing. We'll do a presentation on what Greenbelt provides, code enforcement and other tenant rights, and a brief framework on what tenants' rights and responsibilities are in our city, and then have a listening session. Essentially, bring us your complaints. We'll have someone jot them down, and then we can follow up with those on those complaints. And maybe there are systemic issues that can be grouped together, and then others are going to be individual unit issues that will require follow-up inspections and whatnot. Is that
Okay, that sounds
And
good.
in terms of facilitator, does council want to have a role, or do
I
you
mean,
want staff to
you could
take care of it?
facilitate that, I think, because or staff, because staff are the ones who respond to these complaints. I feel like they're probably just better suited.
Mhm.
I don't know, that's, because I wouldn't really know, like, I don't know the whole process of, I don't know the process of what happens when you file a complaint and that, like, I feel like staff is probably just better suited for that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's always important though for council to say hello. So if council, it's an opportunity to just open things up and turn it over to staff, that'll be great.
Okay. So council will open it up and turn it over to staff.
Well, sure, we don't have to work out the details because just in terms of the calendar, I don't know how we're going to fit this in, but let's do it. Mayor Pro Tem, you have an information item?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the Four Cities meeting that's currently scheduled for the 24th, which is when I believe all of the Four Cities city managers may be out of town. And it sounded like I think there were a few council members who weren't available. I had proposed moving it to the 1st. I think that College Park is doing a Lake Artemisia rededication or something that day. So I'm not sure that's going to work. I don't know if Miss Anderson has had a chance to reach out to the other city clerks. So maybe, I don't know, maybe we need to leave it at the 24th or move it to the 8th. They have their Lakeland College Park Community Center and Lake Artemisia Natural Area. Thursday, May 1st at 6 is
Oh,
a
it's in the evening.
rededication.
Really?
Yeah,
That sounds like a great event. I'll probably.
yeah, it's a
over
rededication
there.
ceremony for that.
Yeah.
I'll try to put it on the council.
Well, I know that I was talking with the city clerk today, and so they've been working on the 1st, and it sounds like that's probably not going to work. Maybe it will. You know, College Park has actually, with the four cities, they tend to just send one person or two people to most of the meetings. Usually it's, unless it's there, so.
And if College Park agrees to the
Yeah,
first, that's
so
fine.
I know so will you continue to reach out and see what we can come up with?
No, that the city managers and administrators would not want councils to change a meeting because we can't be there.
No, well, we care about you guys. We want you there.
You're the ones who have all of the
Well,
answers, though,
okay.
for all the questions that we have. But it may not work. I think yeah.
Okay, and to close things out, you know, I'm a little bit confused. There's a bill hearing on 1266, House Bill 1266 tomorrow, and it has to do with zoning, having a task force to actually talk about the zoning process and how it might be broadened or improved. And I was looking on the docket, and actually, City Manager Summerone, you are actually signed up to testify, and so I'm just a little bit confused about exactly
I am.
what. Yes, you are. Yeah,
I thought that what Daryl's had
I
had
looked
your
and it
name
said
on it.
your name's on there.
Okay.
So we can try and nail this down tomorrow morning, but I'm just a little bit confused because it's sort of it's a county bill, a bi-county bill, a county bill. So it's really almost a PGCMA kind of initiative as much as more so than Greenbelt in some ways. So we'll work it out, but I'm confused. So it's almost 10 o'clock and we tried, got kind of close to the time frame, but if there's no further business, yes, go ahead.
I just want to say that I do not support the mayor's meeting with the Chief Green. We've had that meeting. That meeting has happened a million times. What we talked about in the last Four Cities meeting was a public meeting with her. That is not that. So I just don't support that. I think that the time is come and gone for private meetings for her. Like people want to see her in public. The public wants to meet with her. The public wants to ask her questions. So just having another meeting with the mayors, I feel like does not serve that purpose. That's not what we talked about at the Four Cities meeting. And I just don't think it's going to be very effective. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, you know, we've not, the mayors, we've not actually had a meeting with Chief Green. I guess the last one that we had was probably back in July. It was a long time ago. So the letter, the correspondence went out that council had a chance to review. That's what it said. So I agree. I'd love to get Chief Green to the firehouse or someplace for a public meeting. We can definitely try and do so.
And just to note, the meeting that she's offered the dates that she's offered is for a virtual meeting. So it's not an
Right, it's a
in-person
virtual
meeting, it's a virtual meeting.
So I share your frustration. I truly do. We'll have to see what we can do to move this forward. Mr. Roberts, go ahead.
I was going through some of my mom's stuff the other night, some boxes that I had. And I came across I guess you could call it it was a 1961 report on the city, kind of like the Greenbelt book. If anybody's seen the Greenbelt book, but this one was very narrow, very thin. But it was from 1961, so it covered, from the inception of the city on up to 61. And one of the interesting things I found in there was that originally the fire and rescue squad in Greenbelt was a paid squad by the city of Greenbelt. We had our own fire and rescue squad. And I think one day we might have to go back there because it doesn't seem like the county's really going to let us have a decent fire department. Right now, we have nothing as far as I'm concerned. So it was just interesting. And it had a lot of other interesting facts in there. It had a complete scenario of how the cities, all the land was sold off in the city by the various owners and stuff. Yeah, it's a very interesting little book. I thank my mom for saving that.
Yeah.
To see that.
Yeah, maybe some of that.
Maybe
if
I
you
can
find-
make some copies of it or something.
Donate some to the
It's very
museum.
interesting. It's got a list of all the mayors and the council members, and it's interesting because back then the council members turned over pretty rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah, in 61, I guess that's before the county actually had a fire
Yeah.
department. County didn't have one, so it was all, municipal. We funded one. 'cause
Well, I think
we didn't have
when they
that.
were talking about that, it was our own squad, that was back in the 40s. But by the 60s, we were kind of into the same thing that we're in now.
We moved to the county,
Yeah.
correct?
Okay. Hey, well, if there's no further discussion, let's call it a night. Thank you very much. Thank you.